Gabriel's Gospel Grace, changing lives and kingdom building one stone at a time.
You're talented, you're very skilled, you're charming, you're just pretty awesome. Good morning. Sorry, gone live, didn't even notice. Too busy looking at myself in the mirror. Yes, I know, you're thinking, why is he staring in the mirror when he should be broadcasting? But that's the theme of today's programme. Our Motivational Monday is looking at our identity. Now, when we look in the mirror, often, if you really think about this, we're never looking at the good things. If you're checking your hair, you're not checking to see how amazing it looks. You're checking to see for any imperfections. Has it moved since I did it? In my case, my hair certainly moved in the last 20 years. Most of it is no longer on my head, but possibly blown away in the wind. But do I see that? Does it matter? Is that really important, whether I have all my hair or not? What do you see when you look in the mirror? That's the starting point for today. See, I look in the mirror and I do see age creeping in, but with that age, I also see all the achievements I've made, all the life experiences I've gained, and all the reality that I've absorbed into myself. Some of that good, some of that bad. A lot of our experiences define who we are, or should I say, we define ourselves based on our experiences. But as I say, often when we're looking in a mirror, we're looking at a reflection of ourselves, and we never see our true self. And that's a scientific fact, because if you think about it, you're seeing a mirror image of yourself, so you're kind of flipped the wrong way around. So from that very basis, every time you look in the mirror, you're not what other people see. And I think that's important to recognise at this point. So the question I'm going to start with is, who are you? Who do you believe you are? Who do you see when you look in the mirror? I look in the mirror, of course I see pimples and spots and a little bit of sunburn and various things. But that's the thing, when we look in the mirror, we're looking at the external, we're not really looking at the internal. And even from the external, do we ever look at our positives? Too often we're self-judging ourselves. We are looking at what we perceive others see in us. And often when we're looking at ourselves, even in the positive, we're seeing what we want to see. We're not seeing the true self. I know you can find some videos on YouTube. I think it was one particular one done by a famous, well-known soap company where they took a forensic artist and they sat them in a room behind a curtain. And they asked the people participating to sit down and describe themselves the best they could. And they did, and the sketch artist drew an actual sketch. And that sketch did not reflect the image of the person giving their commentary on themselves. And I think it's important to note that most of us, even those of us who are capable of seeing our positive selves, we're not always reflecting what other people see. And that can be positive, because often that means that there's often a lot more to who we are in our character than what we necessarily perceive. So how do we really take stock of that? And I think really the best way of doing it is seeing the company we keep. Who do we like to associate with? Who do we spend our time with? Now often, family are part of our environment. Our work colleagues are certainly a big part of our environment, or our peers and colleagues at college and school. Sometimes we don't have a choice on who we associate with. But if we're given the choice on who we choose to associate with, then who would them people be? Now, if you're finding today that you're just feeling that actually I'm not surrounded by the people that reflect who I am, the people around me don't share my values, they don't share my morality, they don't build me up, they don't allow me to contribute to their lives, and possibly they don't contribute to yours, then today's probably a day to start looking for change. How do we go about that? Well, we come back to looking in the mirror. First thing is we look at ourselves. I wouldn't go too harsh on our negatives, but I do think sometimes we have to acknowledge our negatives. We shouldn't be obsessed though. We shouldn't look purely for negatives, because often that skews our personal image and our perception of ourselves. So now we see worse in ourselves than others do around us. But we can certainly use it as a way of taking stock of where we are today. Do we look healthy? Do we look happy? Do we look tired? They're certainly starting points. But who do you want to see in that mirror? Who do you want to see looking back at you? Even on a not so good day, it's nice to just be surrounded by people that kind of give you that sense of purpose, lift your spirit, make you feel well again in the world. But you see, you can be that person if you choose to be. So that's the first task for today. Genuinely look at yourself honestly. And that's not easy to do. See, at the start of this program, I was looking at all my positives, because on the whole, that's what I see. My negatives are negligible. Now, I'm not saying that's how other people see it. But what negatives I do identify, I can possibly address. Or also identify that what others perceive as negatives, I see as strengths. Therefore, I won't try and change myself. In the world today at the moment, everybody's constantly being told they must change to meet the needs of the others around them. Their perception is more important than yours. Their perception of you is more important than your self-perception. And I'm challenging that narrative today and saying no, no more. Your well-being is your well-being. That's your responsibility. If we can't take care of ourselves and put ourselves forward, then how can we look after others? I'm going to be going somewhere with this. Stay with me. So if we look at ourselves in the positive, then people may even say this about me. They see me as egotistic. I love myself, possibly even narcissist. But many people that use them sort of phrases, I often find are people that are jealous of people, jealous of people's talents, jealous of people's abilities, jealous of other people's popularity, and more importantly, they're just jealous of the fact that that person seems happy in life. They're happy and content being who they are. They don't need to change themselves on the outside cosmetically or wear expensive brands of clothing to feel important. They're just content. They're full of inner joy. And that upsets a lot of people. Often you find people that are negative or unhappy or depressed, they want everyone around them to feel like they do. They don't necessarily take the responsibility to realise that they have to help lift themselves up. So in fact, actually, the best thing a person who's feeling low about themselves should do is spend time with people that are positive. But instead, I hear people often condemning such people. So if you're not a narcissist or ego-driven, as other people would say, because actually you like yourself, then it's more likely you're going to be condemned for other reasons. Now, another example of that is the term pride. Being prideful. Others may accuse me of being prideful, but if you look at my character, I do a lot of giving in life. I give a lot of time. I give a lot of myself. I like to see people do better, and if I can elevate people beyond myself, I'll always do that. That's not the signs of a narcissist. It's the signs of someone with confidence. Someone who's happy and content being who they are in the world. And as I say, we'll come on to how that comes about later. Now, one of my teachers highlighted something very important, and this is the opposite aspect of perceived pride. He gave the example, if you walked in a room and asked in that room, whoever is the most humble, please stand up. Please make yourself known. You know, it's more likely that the person who is the most humble in the room will not stand up, because it seems that by standing up, it would be ego or pride. Or more importantly, it's more prideful not to stand up because you're not being honest. And I think that's the key to today's message of identity. You must be your honest, genuine, authentic, natural self. You need to learn to love that person. But more importantly, you need to grow into that person. The majority of people today are not who they perceive they are, and they're not even who they're supposed to be. They've become a product of their family, a product of society, or in more recent times, the product of media. All these other external factors tell you who you are and who you should be. And actually, if you're not content in life, if you're struggling, then the chances are that's not who you're supposed to be. I used to be an engineer, electronics engineer, and when I design something, I design it for a purpose. That purpose is quite specific. Now, often in life, a good example would be the screwdriver. It becomes a multi-tool. It actually has multiple functions. And even though it serves them functions, it wasn't its purpose. If you ask me as an engineer to design something to open tins of paint, it may resemble a screwdriver, but it wouldn't be a screwdriver. If you ask me to use something that can be used like a chisel, the size of a screwdriver, again, it would be a unique design, but may share similarities of a screwdriver. But a screwdriver is a screwdriver. And your purpose and character of who you're supposed to be is not necessarily who you are today. And I'd suggest at least 50% of the population are not content in life because they're not serving their purpose, or they're trying to become another identity. Here's an example. Good example. Clark Kent, Superman. You see, in reality, we know they're actually the same person, but they wear two different identities. One is supposed to be their true self. The other is the projected character of Clark Kent to the rest of the world. But in reality, if you pay attention to the story of Superman or any other superhero, actually, kal-El, Superman, Clark Kent, they're all the same person. They just wear different external clothing and act a particular way to redefine their identity in certain situations. And of course, in careers, that's often quite important. A surgeon would be seen as the most important person in the room during an operation. But I promise you, in other scenarios, he's possibly the nobody because he isn't trained or skilled or competent to handle those scenarios. We often put too much focus on other people's abilities and less on our own. We don't celebrate who we are the way we should do, the way we were intended and the way we were designed. So now let's look at it another way. Let's look from the external. Who do people see with the who am I question? An example of this was actually my dad, who actually passed 4 years ago this month. And at his funeral, I asked the question, who was he? Who was this man? This man that I knew to be my dad. This man was also a son and a brother to others. He used to be a member of staff at a university. He was a teacher. He was a colleague. He was a tennis player, a salsa dancer. But all the people that came to his funeral would never know the other identities. They would never know him as a father. They'd never know him as a son. They'd never know him as the man who helped people achieve their degrees, spent time sharing wisdom with them and experience. And even I never had that same experience that they had. Because every relationship is different. And our identity within them relationships is actually a partnership. I can't define my identity to another person. I can have authority. I can have protocols and stuff in place. Even today, there are now new laws to try and enforce identities to be recognised. And not just recognised and acknowledged, but actually impose how we treat people with identities. Various groups are being splintered at the moment and fractured because there is now a new world narrative trying to dictate who people are to others. But again, I come back to the story of my dad. Who are you? He was many people to many people. And the truth is, sad that it is, not being at his own funeral, he'll never know who he was to everyone, how important he was. But you're also that person today. You are important to others. You do influence others. You bring joy and life to others. Our identity really is a relationship with others. And we need to reflect on the company we keep and how much of a difference we bring to their lives. See, the more we give to other people of ourselves, the more we get back. The more we challenge ourselves to be with what we would consider better people. And I mean you. Who do you consider to be better than you? In a world of equality, you can never grow. Now, let me be clear on that. Equality of opportunity, we should all have opportunities. But I can't become the faster runner unless I have someone who's faster than me to try and gain upon. I can't be the more intellectual if there's no one to challenge me or debate me. I can't be the better singer until people give me more challenging songs to sing. We can only grow through challenging ourselves. But we also have to reflect and respect that failure comes with that. But we shouldn't be defined by our failures, more defined by our achievements and finding our purpose in life. So let me give you another little scenario. A common one I come across as a life coach. The scarecrow. Why the scarecrow? Well, I'll give you a hint. We're off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz. Yes, I'm talking about the scarecrow from the Wizard of Oz. Now, if you remember his journey, along with his other colleagues, the Cowardly Lion and the Tin Man, they were all seeking something. Now, for me personally, as a life coach, I often have many people, even in this week, there are people that have identified with me, that they're not changing as a person, believe me, between now, next year, 8 years' time. Who they are will not change, and their purpose in life will not change. But some of them are seeking a piece of paper. The scarecrow didn't believe he was intelligent. He didn't have a brain. But of course, by the end of the journey, when the wizard gives him his certificate, he achieved everything in that journey to get his certificate. Another example the Wizard of Oz gives us is the fact actually sometimes the journey is where all the learning and growth happens, and the recognition. Now, don't get me wrong, of course it's nice to get a reward or a certificate or acknowledgement at the end. And for many jobs today, of course, you need it as a qualification. Not a simple piece of paper that says, oh, look, I achieved this, but it says I'm qualified, I am competent, I'm at this level, I know what to do in these situations. So I'm not knocking that. It is important. But I've had clients before that are already academically achieving and very competent. But when it comes to the crunch time, the thought of starting a new business, the thought of moving in a new direction, as they come to the point of taking action, suddenly it changes to, I think I need to take my next level. I need to take a master's degree, or I need to do a PhD. And I look at them and have to often say, scarecrow. And I give exactly this example. So if ever you're going to come to me for coaching in the future, you'll be familiar with this term scarecrow. Because the reality is we don't always need that piece of paper. We don't need to define ourselves to the world. Sometimes that's exactly what we're looking for, validation. And trust me, I've got letters after my name. My careers have involved having to use them. I don't use them today. They don't go on anything unless it's absolutely necessary or relevant. Now, if you desire letters after your name because it's important for your future and career, then that's fine. But the question you have to ask is, how far do I need to go? How far am I willing to go? And even if I get there, what's the point of running and winning a race when there's no one in the race anymore and there's no audience to cheer you on at the end? You see, our purpose might be for the now. It might be today we're supposed to take action in the world and make a difference. Today is the day that we're supposed to reach out and help others, find our place, become who we're supposed to be. Now, as I say, this conversation today, I hope you're going to go and look at these details, reflect on yourself, reflect on the company you keep, reflect on whether what you really see in the mirror is important. Are people seeing you for your cosmetic appearance, or do they see you for the character and the support you bring to their lives? Now, as it happens, our guest for this Thursday is going to be talking about what we call our Christ identity. That, for me, is what I call my plumb line now. We do have an identity given to us. The Bible defines who we are in Christ. It also defines our purpose in life. When we have that datum to work from, that metric to know who we're supposed to be, then we can judge ourselves as to whether we're fulfilling our purpose or not. But the one thing is, we don't always define ourselves by what everyone else sees. It's more important that we take stock of purpose and character, not just the visual. So as I draw to a close for today's episode, I want you to reflect on your identity. Who do you want to be? Is it important to define yourself a particular way to meet certain criteria that meets the current narrative? Is it important to project a particular image to your work colleagues? Or are you having to play a role within your family because you can't be honest? Perhaps today's the day you start to think about who you're meant to be, redefine how you're going to live in the world, and find your true identity. Tune in on Thursday to find out more. God bless. If you were blessed by this video, why not give it a like? Also subscribe to this channel and hit the bell icon to be notified of future videos.